Hello. So my name is Neil McGovern. I am the Executive Director of the GNOME Foundation, and as some of you may have heard, we're getting sued by a patent troll. Before I start, I want to say, this is not legal advice. I am not your lawyer, and I'm not a lawyer at all. So listening to me to get any sort of legal advice is probably a really bad idea. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on and the current status. I'm not going to talk at all about what we're doing about it, because that requires privilege between our lawyers and the GNOME Foundation. But I will talk about our aims and what we're trying to do. And to give you a little bit of a story about what it's like to get sued by a patent troll, so how this came about and what was going on. We were at Quadric this year in Thessaloniki, in Greece. It was fantastic. We had an amazing turnout, a load of people who were really passionate about GNOME, and fantastic weather. Beautiful surroundings, wonderful plazas, great food, lots of great beer. And it was a wonderful time. We were having a great conference. There was loads of people turned up. I certainly spot some people in this photo who are around here. We had a great welcome party. Went to hang out with loads of good friends, old and new. I'm British, so again, we drank a lot of beer. There was quite a lot of that, and I mean a lot of beer around the place. So just to give you a bit of background, but it wasn't all socializing. There was also some very hard work at our beach, Boff, where we went swimming. So just to give you an idea, we'd have a fantastic conference, and then this was the last sort of Hackfest workshop Boff day that we decided this year in Quadric. We're all going to go to the beach instead. Some people didn't want to. So they had a museum Boff instead, so they went around a load of museums in Thessaloniki. So it was a wonderful way to wind down the conference on the last day. I saw this. This is parked in Thessaloniki Harbour. It's a pirate ship. It's fantastic. So you get to go on the pirate ship. It's free. It goes around Thessaloniki Harbour. It's fantastic. And of course, because I'm British, it's actually secretly a floating bar. So the thing about going on the pirate ship is you have to order a beer. So we might have ordered 2. And it was fantastic. And just as I was getting on this ship, and therefore going out of Wi-Fi range or any sort of signal range, my phone goes off, and there's a tweet. We're being sued by a patent troll. Well, that's fantastic. I've just got onto a boat that's just left the harbour, and I have absolutely no idea what's going on, and I haven't even heard about this. So this wonderful, fantastic, relaxing day we've had after the stress of organising a large conference of hundreds of people coming along, was finally able to relax, and then saw this. Now, for those of you that may be unfortunate enough to get involved in legal proceedings, this is not the normal way you get notified of a lawsuit. Over Twitter by a third party. So I saw this. I was on this boat. I couldn't talk to anyone. I was out of signal range. And I had a, let's say, a range of emotions about where we should go. So, what's this Twitter talking about? Oh, what is this Twitter talking about? Oh my, everything's awful, my life is ruined. I was having such a nice time, and then, why did I take this job again? And then finally, of course, okay, let's see what we can do. Let's call our lawyer. So I finally made it back to ground after finishing my beer, obviously, and called Karen Sandler, who is one of the GNOME Foundation's lawyers, and as I'm sure some of you will know, is also the ED of Software Freedom Conservancy. And it was about midday her time, because she's in New York area, or East Coast somewhere. And she was great and said, right, okay, let's have a look at this. I'm going to have some calls with some other lawyers. I'm here for you to try and sort it out. It's all okay. You don't need to worry. It's potentially serious, but we can have a look at it. I'm sure we can get people to come and help with this. This was fantastic. So I was slightly more relaxed. So that evening, fortunately it was my last evening in Thessaloniki, and they had just put on a beer festival, so I obviously went to that. I then got on a plane, landed back at London Gatwick, and had some more emails about this from many different people. I'm just going to go over the patent that it is being that this non-practicing entity is saying we infringe. And as I'm sure everyone knows, a picture paints 1,000 words. So I have a series of about 5 slides here, so that cuts down my slide deck by about 5,000 words. And I'll just explain what these things are as they come up. That's a circle with a camera in and 2 boxes. That's a explosive detonation of a device, as far as I can tell. Figure 3. This is a envelope with a keychain on it, which you put an SD card in to send to your friends or something. This one's great. This one's really explains what this patent is all about. This is a circle and 2 squares with some arrows. And then finally, a Venn diagram involving a camera. This is actually the claims that's stated in the 086 patent. It's rubbish. It's very vague. It's really complex to understand, but it is basically plug your camera into your computer. It says there's photos there. You can go, show me the photos from yesterday and upload them to the internet. A method of taking from receiving lots of images. Does this one work? Yes. Receiving lots of images, doing some sort of filtering where you can do some sort of criteria either manually or automatically, and then transmitting it somewhere else. So, plug your camera into your computer, it sorts out your images, and then you can pick whether to upload them or not. Apparently, this is a patent they hold. So I had arrived a little bit nervous about what was happening in Gatwick, and I found I'd had an email and a voice message on our main GNOME contact number from this group of people, Shearman and Sterling. And they were fantastic. So they said, hey, we'd like to represent you. We've heard you're a non-profit. We've heard you're being sued by a patent troll. And so we'd like to offer you our services. It's like, well, this is going to cost. I had a quick look around, and they have something like 400 lawyers and 80 offices worldwide. But then I read along a little bit more, and they said, I'm not sure this is public, but it is 8 a.m. in California, so they're not awake yet, so they're not watching the stream, so it's fine. They said they would do it pro bono, which means if they don't win, we don't have to pay, which is fantastic and really, really useful, because as a non-profit, we have some money, but nowhere near the amount of money it takes to properly defend a patent case. And so we talked to them. I call Karen. Karen says they're fantastic. She's sat opposite to them in some patent cases before. And they're really good, and we should get involved. So this involved a couple of weeks of phone calls. So some with them about who we are, what we do. They wanted to make sure we were a proper non-profit. What can happen in some cases in the US is you have non-profits who are actually secretly NFL baseball teams with millions and teams of like 50 lawyers or something themselves, so they wanted to make sure we were a proper non-profit and this was going to be a thing that we had to defend. And we started talking about strategies and what we were going to do and how we were going to approach this. At this point, I started to get a little bit more calm again, because we had a really good team of people who were able to help. And then at some point, we worked out that we needed to go public about all of this. So we published a statement on our website saying we were aware of it, that someone had sent us it over Twitter. We think it's baseless, and we intend to vigorously defend. I mean, that's a fairly bland statement. I'm not going to tweet that, yeah, we're being sued, we're totally guilty. So this was a bit of a holding statement, but in the background there was quite a lot of work going on. So we had a look at some of this. We reached out to various organizations, and we had lots of offers of support from those organizations. There was various things we could have done at this time. We could have written to Rothschild Patent Imaging and saying, hey, our lawyers are like pro bono, so your standard method of extorting money out of people isn't going to work this time because the calculations are different. In fact, we did receive a settlement offer from them fairly early on, I think 3 or 4 days after they filed this, offering if we paid them the high tens of thousands of dollars, so high 5 figures, then they would give us a license and all this would go away and we didn't need to worry about it and we didn't need to pay lots of lawyers. We said, thank you very much, but no, which slightly confused them. Shearman suggested we could write to them and say, hey, we're pro bono, and then maybe Rothschild would drop off and just say, oh, it's too much hassle. I remember my second or third phone call with them when I told them my objectives. So my objectives was not to just win the case. I wanted to make sure that Rothschild and any patent troll out there would not ever dream of attacking any free software project ever again. And they would... For me, it's bigger. It's bigger than just GNOME. They have sued 6 other companies, I believe, at the same time, pretty much within 24 hours of each other over the same patent. 5 other proprietary companies, haven't really heard of them or what they do before. But given the breadth of the patents, it's not too surprising they managed to find someone. So and this is my personal opinion, I don't think Rothschild targeted free software. I don't think they targeted us because we're a non-profit. Interestingly, the day before we got sued, we just announced that we'd got a $500,000 donation, and I'm sure these are nothing to do with each other whatsoever, but the timing is a little suspicious. So I don't think they realized what they'd got themselves into. And we wanted to show them that you attack any free software project and this will go badly for you. Attack others all you want. Go for proprietary companies. You do that. Okay. But hands off free software. Not only will we not pay you your fee which you're asking for, we will make sure this goes to court and we will win it. And then we will get your patents invalidated as well. This needs to hurt. And so, when I had that call with the lawyers, they were rather happy. It is not very often that you can tell the lawyers just going, yeah, so you know that thing you really want to do to go and go completely crazy and just do your best and just completely wipe out the other side? yeah, go do that. That's fine. That's great. Don't worry about it. We're not worried too much about the risk here. We're a little bit worried about paying for it, but hey, that's fine. Our aim here is to send a message that this must never, ever happen again. So we decided to go public. I wrote a press release and a blog post saying what was going on, saying that we had been sued, and that we found out over Twitter. They did. So the way it works in the US is you have to legally serve people. So you have to like physically give a bit of paper to someone in California. Fortunately for us, this is in California, not the Northern District of Texas, where it is traditionally where patent violations get filed. So it is in California, it is in our home state. And when you register in the US, you have to have an agent who potentially represents your interests in that state. They had sent it to our agent, except it had been the agent we hadn't used for about 7 years, and they got the wrong address because I think they Googled the wrong address or something. So we didn't actually get the paperwork or anything they'd filed with us for ages, but it's fine. And we filed three bits of paper, 3 motions. First was a motion to dismiss. Now this is a thing where you can say, look, before this even case gets started, before we even look at this, can we like resolve this issue here first? Because we think that's important, and if we resolve this in our favour, then the rest of it doesn't matter. And our case is that this patent should never have been granted in the first place. It's overly broad, it violates Alice, it's something that, an interesting one is there's nothing in this patent that can't be done by a human. There's no invention here, there's no magic new way of working. So plug photos in, sort by date, upload to internet, can be done entirely by a human, because they also said in their filing that it can be done by a human. So that's an interesting way to approach the patent. So our aim here is to get that patent invalidated. Our second one is our answer to the complaint, which is about how Shotwell affects this patent and particular things around that. And we think we deny all the claims, except the pure factual ones. I think we do admit that we are a 501c3 admitted in the US, but that's pretty much it. And then our third one is our countersuit. We're essentially saying this is a rubbish patent, they know it's a rubbish patent, and because it shouldn't be patented in the first place, and if you're a good lawyer you should know that, then we'd kind of like all our fees paid for by them, for them giving the wonder of suing us. Now, that went public. It got quite a lot of press. And loads of people have been really, really supportive of us and what we're trying to do here. We've been talking with organisations as well. So the OIN, the Open Innovation Network, of which we're a member, have also lent us a lot of lawyer time to find prior art in case we need it that far. Hopefully soon there will be something coming out on the EFF blog about this, highlighting our case, and many organisations around as well, including, for example, Software Freedom Conservancy, who've shown their support, and many others. And it's been really heartening to see the entire free software community rally around. So a quick question I had is, how much does this cost? Does anyone know how much it costs to successfully defend against a patent case in the US? 50 quid, so okay. We have 50, 10 million. It's somewhere in between those two numbers. How much? much does this cost? It costs on average about $1.5 million to just defend. That included? Time included. Yeah, so for lawyer time, but then if it gets complex, so if you want to get the patent invalidated, you have to go through the US Patents Office through something called PTAB. That's 30 grand just to file without actually any lawyer time or paying for expert witnesses, which we'd need. This is not cheap. Does everybody have a phone with a camera on it? Get your phone out. There's one of these. And I hope everyone streaming as well is watching this as well. I'll also know if you actually do manage to visit this page, because this is live view, so we can watch as you kindly come and donate to us. So we are watching everywhere, so thank you very much to everyone who has. More importantly, we launched this about a week and a half ago, and we raised over $140,000, which was of our original goal, which was 125, which is fantastic. And this will enable us to actually give a good defense, certainly initially, of free software, and not just of GNOME. And interestingly for us, it was over 3,800 individuals. I also want to say particular thanks to Debian, who have given us $5,000. And hopefully we will be announcing soon, sneak preview, Linux Australia are also giving us $5,000 to help protect. Because I really do believe that, yes, thank you very much, Shirley. And to, of course, everyone who has donated. And it's okay, if you can't donate, that's fine. What I will ask you to do is spread the word, is let people know that free software is under attack. This is not just about GNOME. This is about the attack on free software by a patent troll, and we've all known for many years that software patents are dangerous. Does it matter if we write our code using a open source free software license and we distribute it to millions if it suddenly turns out the software is patented and we need to pay license fees for every single copy of the code? What does it mean? And so we wanted to send that message that this can't happen, and it's not just about the money. What we wanted to show is the amount of people and the amount of public outcry that happens when you attack a free software project like this. So it's about the community coming together, and it's about sending that message. If you sue any free software project, the rest of free software and the rest of the world will come and will be angry and will come and help, and they won't stand for it. I should point out, I'm sure there's nobody here. If anyone does find themselves subject to this, people who support you should not send the opposing counsel horrible, nasty emails. That's not helpful. So the way we win these things is through beating people in court. It's not by being really quite unpleasant in the internet. So that's been a bit of an eye-opener. How much time have I used? About 25 minutes. I've got about 5 minutes or so left. So yeah, that's where we are today. Our next potential court filing. The main court case is probably, if it continues, is going to happen in March, so there's quite a lot of time, but there's lots of discovery and things that happens before then. I'm not going to talk about too much about what our tactics are, or the way we're approaching it, or the things we've discovered so far about this patent case, or our approach to it. What I will reassure people is that our aim here is to protect free software in general, as I think that's the most important principle here. Please follow along on GNOME.org if you want any updates. I think there's a mailing list as well if you want to see kind of what's happening and sort of keep up to date and are interested. I have about 5 minutes left, so I will probably not answer a single question you ask me, because there'll be interesting questions which I can't talk about. However, if anyone does have any questions and wants to ask something that I can answer without my lawyers shouting at me, then please feel free to ask away.
I'm going to do a follow-up question because nobody's asking. So how similar? So you had that problem back a few years ago about I don't know which company was.
Groupon.
Trademark, right? Like they trademarked something called GNOME. Is it a similar case? Like, do you feel this is similar, or is it very different, or what's your feeling about it?
Yeah, it's similar in a way, and it's very different in another way. So this, for those who don't know, a company called Groupon, who you may know do those voucher off things, they decided that they wanted to produce a computing device with software, and they wanted to call it GNOME. And they filed a trademark for GNOME in the US, despite us having that trademark. And we talked to them for a few months and tried to remind them, saying, hey, we've got this already. Could you not? And they ignored us, and they filed it anyway. We pointed out to them that some of the engineers on the Groupon official blog were talking about GNOME and the software that they were using on the desktop, and so they kind of knew about this already. But they filed it anyway, so we responded essentially doing the same, asking for money, and the outcry from that was similarly amazing, which is why I was partially fairly confident that this would work. The attack on free software, despite, even if you, and some of the comments I've seen from people who have donated I'm very British, so what I'll say is that they were mildly disappointed when GNOME 3 came along. Despite that, they still donated. The recognition that this is something that is not acceptable and is something wider in his attack on all of free software, even if you don't disagree with it, is something that is very similar. Unfortunately, it's not a trademark, it's a patent, and it isn't something that has just been filed and we need to say, hey, we already have it. This is something that has been assigned a judge. And it is in court, and there is a real-life judge, and this is a real-life case, and if we're unable to make progress and meet our objectives that we want in time, then they have people standing up in a court case in front of a judge to go through this and decide if we've violated some patents. So the stakes are somewhat higher.
So post everything, so now we have an opportunity to educate the free software community and just everybody else about patent trolls. Are there any plans or possibly to work with the U.S. government and think about patent reform or some other thing as something like that?
So there has been historically an issue of patents and software patents being granted. When I was talking to the EFF, this is particularly useful because there are some pieces of legislation that have tried to recently go through the House and the Senate in the US. One of them got dropped, the second one's kind of stalled out, but a lot of the conversation around that is people going, it's like, yeah, we need this to protect, like, inventions and inventors, and this is important because this protects innovation, and then because of the blatant abuse of the patent system that's happened in the past, there's actually quite a lot of pushback to saying, but what about non-practicing entities, what about patent trolls, and then the lobbying firms pushing for this go, that doesn't happen anymore, they don't exist, they've all been driven out of practice. I think you'll find if they're suing a non-profit, maybe they do still exist, and this is still a thing that happens. So it is sort of useful to remind governments that and political parties that this is still an issue that affects us. Lots of lobbying goes through the EFF, for example, for that, also Free Software Foundation and the various foundations around it to try and do that. As a 501c3, we are limited into how much we can do political lobbying. We're a non-profit, so basically political lobbying can form no major part of our operations. It has to be only minor, incidental, etc. So we can't, as a foundation, directly do that. However, if anybody feels strongly about this or any issue, in fact, I would encourage you to, as a previous politician, I would encourage you to contact your political representatives and talk to them about your concerns. Don't send a mass email, call them, ask for a meeting, have a chat with them. If you actually, this doesn't just apply to GNOME and patents and everything else, but more in general, if you want to get through to a politician, have a meeting with them. Talk to them. The more effort you put into talking and approaching to politicians, the more they'll pay attention to you. When I was a politician, I had hundreds of emails, and especially if it's a campaign which is copy and paste, then you just delete them all. And you just go, oh, well, 5,000 people sent me an email petition about this. Okay, well, some people care about this. But the impact of someone going and sitting down to you and explaining to you in human language about why this is important and why it affects you is incredibly powerful. So if you care about this, go contact your representatives, try and set up a meeting, talk to them. And through that way, we might actually be able to make some really good changes. I think I have maybe one more question if I'm lucky.
Quick question.
I'll promise I'll answer quickly.
Like, I have no idea about software patents actually, but they exist in the US, but do we also have them in Europe? And like, what does it mean for us other projects? Like, can we also have like software trolls, or if we do patent infringement, can we do that? Like, since it's US law, or?
They don't exist in Europe. You can still be affected by them.
Okay.
Because you can get sued. If you have a user in the US, you can get sued over it.
Okay.
With the extra advantage of you get to fly to the US to defend it.
Ooh.
So you could argue jurisdiction, but that's part of the issue, is this concept that, oh, this exists in the US but not in Europe is fine, but it doesn't actually work. See GDPR. You can't just go, oh, well, I'm in the US, so I'm going to ignore it because that's a European thing, because it involves everyone in Europe. So the fact that this exists in one jurisdiction means it exists essentially for all global projects. And if you touch the US at all, then if you touch any country, you can become subject to their regimes. That is a overly broad answer. I am not a lawyer. Please go talk to a lawyer.
Okay.
Wait.
Is pushing for approving software patents in Europe. Some years ago, we have a fight. We won. I think very por los pelos by the minor. But I am most sure that the big lobbies, especially from United States companies, are still pushing and lobbying to try again at some point in the future for in the European Union. And just another point, there are other countries also than the United States that they have software patents too. I think Mexico, I think Canada, and maybe others. So it could be relevant too, depending the market, etc. Yes, that.
Yeah, with WIPO, and there's something called the Madrid Protocol as well, which if you get a patent granted somewhere, you can sort of get it ported and applied in other countries as well. So even if one particular jurisdiction doesn't let you register it, you might be able to get it in. So the point is that we should all, no matter where we live, and no matter where our projects are based, is we should all care about software patents globally, because it all affects us anyway. So I know I'm definitely out of time and I'm getting some looks. So thank you very much, everyone.